He made lunch for the hungry alien kids daily, never knowing their mother ruled the galaxy. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The small diner at the edge of Lunar City wasn't much to look at. Sandwiched between a repair shop and a supply depot, the Blue Plate was easy to miss among the gleaming skyscrapers and bustling transportation tubes that defined humanity's most prosperous off-world colony. But for Tyler Grant, it was everything. Tyler wiped his hands on his apron as he gazed out the scratched view screen that served as the diner's only window to the lunar surface. Earth hung like a blue marble in the black sky, partially obscured by the communications array on the adjacent building. Business had been slow today, as it had been for months now. The massive galactic assembly complex being built on the far side of the moon had diverted traffic away from this section of the city, leaving small businesses like his struggling to stay afloat. He sighed and turned back to the kitchen, the gentle hum of the ventilation system the only sound in the empty restaurant. At 35, Tyler hadn't expected to be running a failing diner on the moon, but after his culinary career on Earth had imploded, this place had been his second chance, one that now seemed to be slipping away. The soft chime of the entrance sensor interrupted his thoughts. Tyler looked up, surprised to see customers at this late hour. His surprise turned to shock when three small figures shuffled through the door. They weren't human. Tyler had seen aliens before, of course. Ever since first contact 5 years ago, Earth had become a minor but recognized member of the Galactic Assembly. Various species occasionally visited Earth and its colonies, though most kept to the diplomatic sectors and high-end tourist destinations. None had ever wandered into his diner. These visitors were children, or at least he assumed so from their size. Standing about 4 feet tall, they had slender frames covered in smooth, pale blue skin with subtle iridescent patterns that shifted with their movements. Their large, almond-shaped eyes, entirely silver with no visible pupils, regarded Tyler with unmistakable wariness. Small breathing slits fluttered on the sides of their necks, and their four-fingered hands fidgeted nervously as they hesitated just inside the doorway. Tyler recognized their species from newscasts, Saralans, a highly advanced race from somewhere near the galactic core. What he couldn't figure out was why 3 Saralan children would be wandering alone into his diner at the edge of Lunar City. Hello, Tyler said, forcing a smile he hoped would appear welcoming. Welcome to the Blue Plate. Can I help you? The tallest of the 3 stepped forward. When it spoke, the translation pendant hanging from its neck converted its melodic clicks and trills into slightly mechanical English. We have credits, the child said, the pendant giving the voice a feminine quality. She held up a standard galactic credit chip. We require sustenance. Tyler nodded slowly, trying to hide his confusion. Sure, I can make you something to eat. What would you like? The 3 children exchanged looks, their silvery eyes blinking rapidly in what Tyler assumed was their version of communication. The tallest one spoke again. We are unfamiliar with Earth cuisine. We require protein and carbohydrates compatible with Saralan physiology. Tyler scratched his head. I don't know much about Saralan dietary needs. Let me check my system. He pulled out his tablet and quickly searched for information on Saralan nutrition. Thankfully, as part of Earth's integration into the galactic community, basic xenobiological data had been made available to food service establishments. Okay, he said after a moment. Looks like you can eat most Earth proteins and carbohydrates. You need to avoid dairy and nightshades. That's things like tomatoes and peppers. But otherwise, you're pretty compatible with our food. He looked at them with renewed confidence. How about I make you something simple to start? Maybe some chicken with rice and steamed vegetables. The children conferred silently again before the spokesperson nodded. That is acceptable. Great. Why don't you 3 take a seat? I'll have your food ready soon. The children chose a booth near the back of the diner, climbing onto the seats with cautious movements. Tyler couldn't help but notice their clothing, simple gray jumpsuits that looked like standard-issue uniforms rather than children's attire. More puzzling was their presence here, alone, without adult supervision. The Galactic Assembly Complex was at least 20 miles away on the far side of the moon, and he couldn't imagine what would bring these children to this forgotten corner of Lunar City. As he prepared their meal, Tyler occasionally glanced at the children. They sat rigidly at first, but gradually began to relax, looking around the diner with what appeared to be curiosity. The smallest one pointed at the vintage jukebox in the corner, and they engaged in what seemed to be an animated discussion. Tyler prepared a simple meal of grilled chicken cutlets, steamed rice, and a medley of vegetables, taking care to exclude any nightshades as the database had warned. He arranged the food neatly on plates, added a few herbs for color and flavor, and brought the meals to their table. "Here you go," he said, placing the plates in front of them. "Careful, it's hot." The children stared at the food with wide, silvery eyes. After a moment of hesitation, the tallest one picked up a fork and cautiously took a bite of chicken. Her eyes widened, and she made a soft, trilling sound that the translation pendant didn't convert. "Is it okay?" Tyler asked, worried he'd made some cultural or dietary mistake. "It is." The child paused, seemingly searching for the right word. "Pleasurable. The texture and flavor are harmonious." Tyler grinned. "That's good to hear. It's just simple food, but I'm glad you like it." The other two children began eating as well, and Tyler was amused to see them gradually increase their pace, their initial caution giving way to what appeared to be genuine enjoyment. "I'm Tyler, by the way," he said. "Tyler Grant. What are your names?" Again, that moment of silent communication before the tallest answered. "I am Alara. These are my siblings, Miran and Tasso." She gestured to the middle and smallest child respectively. "Nice to meet you all. If you don't mind me asking, what brings you to this part of Lunar City?" "It's pretty far from the assembly complex." The children tensed visibly. Alara placed her fork down with deliberate care. "We are exploring," she said finally. "Our caretaker is occupied with assembly matters. We were curious about human settlements." Tyler raised an eyebrow. Something didn't add up, but he didn't want to frighten them by pushing too hard. "Well, you've wandered pretty far. This isn't exactly a tourist destination. Does your caretaker know where you are?" The children exchanged another look, and this time Tyler was certain he saw worry in their alien expressions. "Our current location is undisclosed," Alara admitted. "We will return before our absence is detected." Tyler frowned. Lost children, or worse, runaway children, were the same in any species, apparently. But it wasn't his place to intervene in alien family matters, especially involving diplomatic personnel, which these kids almost certainly were. "Well, you're welcome here anytime," he said instead. "Are you still hungry? I could make dessert, something sweet." The smallest one, Tasso, perked up noticeably at this, making a chirping sound that needed no translation. Tyler chuckled. "I'll take that as a yes." He returned to the kitchen and prepared a simple fruit compote with berries and honey, checking the database to confirm the ingredients were safe for Saraland consumption. When he returned with 3 small bowls, he was rewarded with what he interpreted as looks of delight from the alien children. They ate their dessert with evident pleasure, and when they finished, Alara placed their payment chip on the table. The meal was satisfactory. "We thank you." "You're very welcome," Tyler replied, processing their payment. "Like I said, you're welcome back anytime." As the children left the diner, Tyler watched them through the view screen, concerned about them wandering alone. They moved with purpose toward one of the public transport tubes, their small blue forms soon disappearing from view. He shook his head, wondering about their story, but soon returned to the reality of his struggling business. One meal for 3 alien kids wouldn't save the blue plate, but it had certainly made for an interesting evening. Tyler would never have guessed that this chance encounter would completely transform his life. The next day, just before the lunch hour, the chime at the door sounded again. Tyler looked up from where he was wiping down the counter to see Alara, Miran, and Tasso entering the diner. Today they were accompanied by a 4th child, slightly smaller than Alara, but with the same iridescent blue skin. "Welcome back." Tyler greeted them with genuine pleasure. The diner was empty again, and he was happy for the company and the business. "We have returned for more sustenance," Alara announced, gesturing to their new companion. "This is Kren." We informed them of the pleasurable food experience. "Nice to meet you, Kren," Tyler said. "I'm glad you enjoyed the food yesterday. What would you like today? Can you provide the same meal?" Alara asked. Tyler considered this. "I could, but there are lots of different Earth foods you might enjoy. Would you like to try something new?" The children conferred in their silent way before Alara nodded. We will experience New Earth cuisine. Great, Tyler said. How about sandwiches today? Grilled chicken with fresh vegetables on bread. And maybe some soup. After checking that all ingredients were compatible with Saraland physiology, Tyler set to work preparing their lunch. As he cooked, he observed the children settling into the same booth as yesterday, seeming more at ease in the environment now. The smallest one, Tasso, was showing Kren the vintage jukebox that had captured their attention before. When Tyler brought their food, he was rewarded with what he interpreted as expressions of delight. The children ate with enthusiasm, and Tyler couldn't help but feel proud that his simple cooking was being enjoyed by visitors from another star system. So, he said, leaning against the adjacent booth, exploring again today? Alara hesitated before responding. Our caretaker is attending extended assembly negotiations. We are permitted recreational time. Tyler nodded, though he still suspected there was more to the story. And you chose to come all the way back here? I'm flattered, but there must be more interesting places in Lunar City for kids to visit. Mirren, who hadn't spoken before, suddenly activated their translation pendant. Other establishments refuse service without adult supervision, or they ask too many questions. Tyler raised his eyebrows. And I don't ask too many questions. You provide food without excessive inquiry, Alara stated. This is preferable. Tyler decided to change the subject. Well, I'm happy to have you here. How long will you be staying on the moon? Indeterminate, Alara replied. The assembly negotiations are complex. Our mother. She stopped abruptly, the other children stiffening. Your mother is part of the negotiations? Tyler asked casually, trying not to show too much interest at this slip of information. We should not discuss assembly matters, Alara said firmly. Fair enough, Tyler agreed, respecting their privacy. How about that dessert now? I could make you something different today. The mention of dessert immediately lightened the mood, and all four children perked up noticeably. Tyler prepared a simple apple crumble with a drizzle of honey, which the children devoured with evident delight. When they left, Tyler found himself hoping they would return. There was something about these alien children that intrigued him, not just their obvious secret adventures away from supervision, but their reactions to his food. In their silver eyes, he had seen something he hadn't experienced in a long time, genuine appreciation for his cooking. For the next week, the Saraland children returned every day around the same time. Sometimes all four came together, other days just 2 or 3 would appear. Occasionally, they brought new friends, more Saraland children who, Tyler gathered, were the offspring of various diplomatic personnel at the assembly complex. Each day, Tyler prepared something new for them to try. Hearty stews, various grilled meats with different marinades, stir-fried vegetables with noodles, and an assortment of desserts. The children's enthusiasm for human cuisine grew, and they became more talkative, asking questions about ingredients and cooking methods. Tyler found himself looking forward to their visits. His diner remained mostly empty otherwise, but for those brief hours when the alien children filled the booths, the blue plate felt alive again. He began to prepare special dishes just for them, researching Saraland preferences and modifying recipes to better suit their tastes. On the 8th day, as the children were finishing a meal of roasted chicken with herbs and root vegetables, Alara made an unexpected request. Tyler Grant, she said formally, we wish to compensate you for providing additional sustenance. Tyler looked confused. Additional? You always pay for your meals. We require food to transport back to our dwelling, Alara clarified. For those who cannot come here. Tyler nodded slowly. You want takeout, food to go? Sure, I can do that. What would you like to bring back, and for how many? 7 additional portions, Alara stated. They have dietary restrictions similar to ours. Tyler whistled. 7 more? That's a big order. Give me some time to prepare it. As he worked in the kitchen, Tyler's curiosity grew. These children were clearly bringing food back for others, perhaps friends who weren't allowed to venture out as they did. The situation seemed increasingly odd, but Tyler reminded himself that it wasn't his place to interfere in alien cultural practices. He packed individual containers with portions of the day's meal, adding extra dessert as a goodwill gesture. When he presented the large bag to Alara, all 4 children seemed genuinely grateful. This is most appreciated, Alara said, offering their payment chip. Your cuisine has been declared superior to the nutrition provided at our temporary dwelling. Tyler accepted the payment with a smile. Happy to help. Will I see you tomorrow? We will return, Alara confirmed. Your establishment fulfills our requirements optimally. After they left, carrying their large bag of food, Tyler stood at the view screen watching their small forms disappear into the transport tube. There was definitely more to these children and their story than they were letting on, but their visits had become the highlight of his days. Whatever their circumstances, they were bringing life back to his failing diner, and for that alone, he was grateful. What Tyler couldn't possibly know was that his simple acts of kindness were being closely observed, and that they would soon attract attention from the highest levels of galactic power. 2 weeks after the Saraland children's first visit, Tyler's diner had established a new routine. Every day around midday, between 4 and 10 blue-skinned alien children would file into the blue plate, occupy several booths, and eagerly await whatever new human dishes Tyler had prepared for them. They now brought containers with them for the additional portions they took back to their dwelling. Tyler had expanded his menu to accommodate their growing appreciation for Earth cuisine, and the children had become more comfortable sharing details about themselves, though they remained conspicuously vague about their parents and why they were permitted such freedom to wander Lunar City unsupervised. Tyler learned that they ranged in age from what would be equivalent to 8 to 12 Earth years. They were all children of various officials working at the Galactic Assembly Complex, though they deflected questions about their parents' specific roles. They lived in temporary diplomatic housing and found the regulated environment restrictive, hence their explorations beyond the boundaries set for them. On this particular day, Tyler was preparing a special meal, fried chicken with mashed potatoes and steamed green beans, followed by peach cobbler for dessert. It had become clear that Saraland children had a particular fondness for fruit-based desserts, and Tyler enjoyed seeing their silver eyes widen with delight at each new sweet creation. The door chimed, and Tyler looked up expectantly. Instead of the children, however, a single adult human entered, a woman in the gray uniform of lunar security. Tyler felt a sudden knot of anxiety in his stomach. Tyler Grant, the officer asked, approaching the counter. That's me, Tyler confirmed, wiping his hands on his apron. What can I do for lunar security? The woman studied him with a professional neutrality that revealed nothing. I'm Officer Megan Brooks. We've received reports of unusual activity at this establishment, specifically regular gatherings of underage Saraland diplomatic dependents. Tyler swallowed. The kids? They're just customers. They come for lunch. Unsupervised minor aliens, over 20 miles from the diplomatic quarter, visiting a human establishment daily. Officer Brooks raised an eyebrow. Surely you understand why that might raise concerns. They pay for their meals, Tyler said defensively. They're well-behaved. I don't see the problem. The problem, Mr. Grant, is that diplomatic dependents, especially minors, are subject to strict security protocols. Their presence here, without notification to proper authorities, constitutes a potential breach of those protocols. She glanced around the empty diner. Are you expecting them today? As if on cue, the door chimed again. 8 Saraland children entered, led by Alara. They froze when they saw the security officer. Hello, kids, Tyler called out, trying to sound casual. This is Officer Brooks. She was just asking about your visits here. The children remained near the door, their postures tense. Alara stepped forward cautiously. We have committed no violations, she stated, her translation pendant giving her voice a defensive edge. Free movement within public areas of Lunar City is permitted to diplomatic dependents during recreational periods. Officer Brooks turned to face the children. That's partially correct, but there are notification requirements and approved zones for unaccompanied minors. This establishment is outside those zones. We are aware of no such restrictions, Alara countered. Tyler intervened. Look, officer, they're just kids who like my food. I don't see the harm. Officer Brooks sighed. Mr. Grant, I understand your position, but there are diplomatic sensitivities involved here that you may not be aware of. She turned back to the children. I'll need to contact your guardians and arrange proper escort back to the diplomatic quarter. Panic flashed across the children's alien features. Tasso, the smallest, made a distressed, trilling sound. That is unnecessary, Alara insisted. We can return independently. I'm afraid that's not possible now that this situation has been officially noted, Officer Brooks replied, reaching for her communication device. Tyler felt a surge of protectiveness. Wait, what exactly will happen to them? Their guardians will be notified of their unauthorized excursions. The children will be escorted back to the diplomatic quarter and restricted from further unsupervised activities. Standard procedure. The children looked at each other in what Tyler now recognized as their silent communication. He could sense their fear. These weren't just kids sneaking out for treats. They were genuinely afraid of the consequences of being discovered. Officer, Tyler said firmly, before you make that call, I think we should consider that these are children from another culture. There might be misunderstandings about the rules. Perhaps we could resolve this without involving their guardians. Officer Brooks studied him for a moment. What are you suggesting, Mr. Grant? Let me take responsibility for them while they're here, Tyler proposed. I'll register my diner as an approved destination for diplomatic dependents. Fill out whatever paperwork you need. They clearly want to come here, and I'm happy to have them. That would require a diplomatic clearance that takes weeks to process, Officer Brooks pointed out. Then let's start the process, Tyler insisted. In the meantime, couldn't we consider this a cultural exchange opportunity? Earth joining the galactic community is about building relationships, right? These kids are learning about human culture through food. That seems like exactly the kind of interaction we should be encouraging. Officer Brooks looked torn. She glanced at the children, who were watching the exchange with obvious anxiety. Finally, she sighed. I can delay filing my report for 48 hours. That will give you time to submit a proper application for diplomatic minor visitation rights. She gave Tyler a stern look. But if that application isn't filed, or if I see these children here again before approval comes through, I'll have no choice but to follow standard protocol. Thank you, Tyler said with genuine relief. I'll get that application in today. After Officer Brooks left, the children slowly approached the counter, still visibly shaken. Is the security officer going to inform our caregivers? Alara asked, a tremor in her translated voice. Not yet, Tyler assured them. But we need to follow the proper procedures now. I'm going to apply for permission to have you visit legally. He studied their worried expressions. What exactly are you afraid will happen if your caregivers find out you've been coming here? The children exchanged glances before Alara answered. Our freedom would be restricted. The others, those who cannot come here, would lose access to your food. She hesitated. There would be consequences. Tyler frowned. What others? And what consequences? We cannot explain fully, Alara said. But your food has become important. Not just for us. She gestured to the large bag they had brought for takeout portions. For many. Tyler was about to press further when his tablet pinged with a notification. Someone had just made a massive deposit to the Blue Plates account. More credits than Tyler typically made in 3 months. What the? He stared at the screen in confusion, then at the children. Did you do this? We require your continued food preparation, Alara stated simply. This ensures your establishment remains operational. Tyler was stunned. This is way too much for lunch and some takeout. It is calculated based on the sustainability requirements of your business, Alara explained matter-of-factly. Our analysis of local economic patterns indicated your establishment was at risk of closure. Tyler didn't know whether to laugh or be concerned. These kids had somehow analyzed his financial situation and decided to ensure his diner stayed open, apparently because their mysterious others needed his food. Look, he said finally, I appreciate this, but I can't take such a large payment without understanding what's really going on here. Who are these others you're feeding? Why is my food so important? And where did all these credits come from? The children conferred silently again, their iridescent patterns shifting rapidly across their blue skin. Finally, Alara nodded decisively. We will explain, but not here, she said. Tomorrow, you must come with us after providing the daily meal. You will understand then. Tyler hesitated. This situation was becoming increasingly bizarre, but his curiosity was piqued. Plus, he genuinely cared about these strange alien children who had brightened his failing diner, and apparently just saved his business from bankruptcy. All right, he agreed. Tomorrow, I'll go with you. But for now, let's get your lunch ready. I made fried chicken today. I think you're going to love it. The children's mood lightened immediately at the mention of food, and they took their usual seats. As Tyler returned to the kitchen to finish preparing their meal, he wondered what he had gotten himself into, and what secrets he would discover tomorrow. The next day, after serving lunch to an unusually large group of 15 Saraland children, Tyler found himself following them through Lunar City's transport tube system. He had closed the diner early, leaving a sign indicating a private catering event, and felt a mixture of curiosity and apprehension about where they were taking him. They transferred between tubes several times, moving deeper into the industrial sector of Lunar City, away from both the commercial areas and the diplomatic quarter. Eventually, they exited at a station Tyler had never visited before, despite living on the moon for nearly 3 years. "Where exactly are we going?" Tyler asked as they led him down a utilitarian corridor lit by harsh fluorescent panels. "A temporary dwelling," Alara replied, "for those who cannot move freely." They approached what appeared to be an abandoned storage facility. Alara placed her hand against a seemingly ordinary section of wall, which shimmered briefly before revealing a hidden doorway. Tyler's eyebrows shot up. This was advanced technology, well beyond standard lunar security systems. "Is this legal?" Tyler asked hesitantly. "It is necessary," Alara stated, which wasn't exactly reassuring. The door opened into a large, open space that had been converted into a makeshift living area. Simple bedding was arranged in neat rows along the walls. Storage containers served as tables and chairs. The lighting was dim, with strange blue-tinted fixtures that Tyler assumed were designed for Saraland visual comfort. What shocked Tyler was the number of occupants. At least 30 Saraland children of various ages were gathered in the space, all turning to look at him as he entered. Many appeared younger than any he had seen in his diner, some barely toddlers. A few older ones, appearing to be adolescents, stood protectively near the youngest ones. "What is this place?" Tyler asked, his voice hushed with astonishment. "A sanctuary," Alara explained, "for the children of lower-tier diplomatic personnel and service workers." One of the older adolescents approached, wearing what appeared to be a more elaborate version of the jumpsuits the other children wore. When they spoke, their translation pendant gave their voice a masculine quality. "I am Varix, assigned guardian for this group. You are the food provider." "I'm Tyler Grant," Tyler confirmed, still trying to process what he was seeing. "I run the Blue Plate Diner. Some of these kids have been coming there for meals." He gestured to Alara and the others who had brought him. "But I had no idea about all this." Varix nodded. "The children speak highly of your cuisine. It has improved health metrics significantly." Tyler looked around at the facility again. "I don't understand. Why are all these children living in a hidden storage facility? Shouldn't they be in proper diplomatic housing?" Varix and Alara exchanged glances before Varix explained. "The Galactic Assembly negotiations have extended beyond projected timeframes. Resources were allocated primarily to high-ranking officials and their immediate families. Lower-tier personnel and their dependents received inadequate accommodations." Tyler frowned. "So the Galactic Assembly just what? Left all these kids to fend for themselves in some warehouse?" "It is more complex," Varix said. "There are hierarchical structures within our delegation. Priority is given based on status. The children of high-status officials receive proper housing, nutrition, and care. The rest." He gestured around the room. "That's horrible," Tyler said, genuinely appalled. "These are children. How could they be treated this way?" "It is our system," Varix stated simply, as if that explained everything. Tyler turned to Alara. "And your parents allow this? They know you're sneaking out to bring food to these kids." A tense silence fell over the room. Alara's iridescent patterns dimmed noticeably. "Our mother is unaware of our activities," she said quietly. "She is occupied with important negotiations. She's so busy she doesn't notice her own kids disappearing every day. She has responsibilities that transcend familial bonds," Alara said, her pendant translating her words with a formality that seemed oddly defensive. "Familial units are not prioritized in Saraland culture as they are in human society." Tyler felt a surge of anger at whoever these neglectful parents were, but he pushed it aside for now. The immediate issue was the dozens of children living in this hidden facility, apparently dependent on the food he had been providing through their daily takeout orders. The nutrition dispensers provided to lower-tier dependents offer basic sustenance, but lack essential nutrients for developing Cerelands, Varix explained. Your food has proven more nutritionally complete. Health scans show improvement in all subjects since they began consuming it. Tyler looked at the container bags the children had brought from lunch today. He had prepared extra portions as usual, but nowhere near enough for all the children he now saw. "How are you feeding everyone with what I send?" he asked. "We divide it efficiently," Varix said. "Those with greatest need receive priority." Tyler ran a hand through his hair, overwhelmed by the situation, but knowing immediately what he needed to do. "This isn't right," he said firmly. "I'm going to help. All of you, not just the ones who can sneak out to my diner." He turned to Varix. "I need to know exactly how many children are here, any specific dietary needs, and what equipment you have for food preparation and storage." Varix seemed surprised by Tyler's immediate commitment. "You would provide nutrition for all?" "Of course I would," Tyler said without hesitation. "They're kids. They need proper food." For the next hour, Tyler took inventory of the facility, learning that there were 42 Cereland children in total, ranging from what would be equivalent to human toddlers up to mid-adolescents. The facility had basic food storage units and minimal cooking equipment, but nothing like what Tyler had in his diner. He made notes on his tablet, formulating a plan. He could prepare meals at the Blue Plate and transport them here daily. It would mean starting work earlier and purchasing additional supplies, but the mysterious deposit from yesterday would more than cover the costs. "I'll start tomorrow," Tyler announced. "Proper meals for everyone, delivered here. And I'll figure out a better solution than dividing a few portions among dozens of kids." The children gathered around him, their silver eyes reflecting a mix of surprise and what Tyler interpreted as hope. A small Cereland, barely waist-high to Tyler, approached hesitantly and touched his hand. The gesture was so unexpectedly gentle and trusting that Tyler felt a lump form in his throat. "Thank you, Tyler Grant," Alara said formally. "Your assistance is significant." "It's what anyone would do," Tyler insisted, though he suspected that wasn't true. The Galactic Assembly representatives certainly weren't doing it. As he prepared to leave, promising to return the next day with proper meals for everyone, Tyler realized he had stumbled into something far more complex than feeding a few alien kids who enjoyed his cooking. He was now effectively responsible for the welfare of dozens of neglected Cereland children, hidden away from official view. And he still had no idea who their parents were or why they had been abandoned like this during supposedly crucial diplomatic negotiations. But whoever these negligent officials were, especially Alara's mother who couldn't be bothered to check on her own children, Tyler had some choice words for them, if he ever got the chance to meet them. Little did he know, that chance would come sooner than he expected, and in a way he could never have anticipated. Over the next 2 weeks, Tyler established a new routine. He rose before dawn to prepare large batches of nutritious meals, carefully crafted to meet Cereland dietary needs while still introducing them to Earth cuisine. By mid-morning, he had packed everything into insulated containers and loaded them onto a small cargo cart he had purchased specifically for this purpose. He kept the Blue Plate open for regular business, but his heart was now with the hidden Cereland children. He continued to serve lunch to the ones who visited the diner, maintaining appearances for Officer Brooks, who had approved his temporary diplomatic minor visitation permit. But his main focus was ensuring all 42 children in the warehouse received proper nutrition. Tyler's financial worries had disappeared. Every few days, a substantial deposit would appear in his account, always from an untraceable source, despite his protests to Alara that it was unnecessary. He used the funds to upgrade his kitchen equipment, purchase higher quality ingredients, and even hire a part-time assistant to help manage the diner while he focused on preparing meals for the Cereland children. During his daily visits to the warehouse, Tyler learned more about the Cereland delegation and the children's situation. The Galactic Assembly negotiations were apparently of critical importance. Something about Earth's position in a complex interstellar trade route and humanity's potential role in a broader galactic conflict that Tyler couldn't quite grasp from the children's limited explanations. What became increasingly clear, however, was the rigid hierarchy within Cereland society. The children in the warehouse were essentially invisible to the higher-tier officials, not intentionally neglected, but simply not considered important enough to merit proper attention, while more critical matters were being addressed. Tyler found this attitude appalling, especially regarding children, but he focused on what he could control, ensuring they were well-fed and as comfortable as possible in their hidden sanctuary. On this particular day, Tyler had prepared a special treat: honey-glazed chicken with roasted root vegetables, followed by apple crisp with a sweet cinnamon sauce that the Saraland children had especially enjoyed during previous meals. As he arranged the food on the makeshift serving tables in the warehouse, he couldn't help but smile at the excitement in the children's silver eyes. "Tyler Grant," Varix approached, his usual formal demeanor seeming more tense than usual. "There is a situation requiring your attention." Tyler looked up, concerned. "What's wrong?" "Higher inspection protocols have been initiated throughout Lunar City," Varix explained. "Security sweeps are moving through all sectors, including industrial zones." Tyler's stomach dropped. "They might find this place. What happens if they do?" "Consequences would be significant," Varix said, his translation pendant somehow conveying gravity despite its mechanical tone. "Not just for the children, but potentially for the negotiations themselves." "Why?" "These kids need proper housing and care. If anything, exposing this situation should force the Assembly to provide better conditions." Varix shook his head. "You do not understand Saraland cultural dynamics. The revelation that lower-tier dependents were receiving unauthorized human assistance would create a diplomatic incident. It would be perceived as humans interfering in Saraland social structures." Tyler was baffled. Feeding hungry kids is interfering in social structures? That's ridiculous. "Nevertheless, it is reality," Varix stated. "We must relocate immediately." "Relocate? Where?" "There are 42 children here." Before Varix could answer, Alara hurried over, her iridescent patterns flickering rapidly in what Tyler now recognized as agitation. "Security officers have entered the lower level," she reported. "Estimated time to this section, 12 minutes. Varix turned to the other children, issuing a series of untranslated clicks and trills that sent them into immediate action, gathering minimal possessions and forming organized groups. "We have contingency locations," Varix explained to Tyler. "But transportation is problematic. We cannot use public transport tubes with security sweeps in progress." Tyler thought quickly. "My delivery cart can transport the smallest children. For the rest, I have an idea." He pulled out his tablet and made a quick call to his assistant at the diner. "Logan, I need a favor, a big one. Get the diner's transport van and bring it to the industrial sector, loading Bay 17C. Now, it's an emergency." After ending the call, Tyler turned back to Varix. "We can move everyone to my diner temporarily. It's small, but it has a storeroom and private back area. We can figure out a more permanent solution once the security sweeps pass." Varix hesitated, then nodded. "This is acceptable. We must move quickly." The next 20 minutes were controlled chaos as they organized the evacuation. The youngest children were loaded onto Tyler's cart, while Varix coordinated the others into groups that could move through the maintenance corridors without attracting attention. When Logan arrived with the diner's transport van, looking confused but asking no questions when Tyler pressed a generous bonus payment into his hand, they began shuttling groups of children to the blue plate. Tyler made 3 trips with the van, heart pounding each time he passed a lunar security patrol. By some miracle, they managed to transport all 42 children to the diner without incident, cramming them into the storeroom and kitchen areas out of sight from the main dining room. "Keep the diner open as normal," Tyler instructed Logan, who was staring wide-eyed at the blue alien children now filling the back of the restaurant. "Act like nothing's unusual. I'll handle this." "Whatever you say, boss," Logan replied, clearly bewildered but cooperative. "But if lunar security comes asking questions, just send them to me," Tyler assured him. "And thanks. I owe you one." With the children temporarily safe, Tyler consulted with Varix about next steps. They needed a more suitable location, somewhere the children could stay comfortably until either the security sweeps ended or a better solution was found. "There's a vacant restaurant space 2 blocks from here," Tyler suggested. "It's been empty for months. It has kitchen facilities, bathroom facilities, and plenty of space. We could set up there temporarily. How would we gain access? Varix asked. Tyler grinned. The owner happens to owe me a favor. Let me make a call. By evening, Tyler had arranged for the vacant restaurant space to be rented for a private event lasting several days. He fabricated a story about catering for an off-world business group seeking privacy, and the owner, eager for any income from the long-empty property, agreed with minimal questions. Under cover of darkness, they moved the children again, this time to the more spacious and appropriate facility. Tyler supervised the arrangement of sleeping areas and ensured the kitchen was operational. By midnight, all 42 Saraland children were settled in their new temporary sanctuary. As Tyler was preparing to leave, promising to return in the morning with breakfast, Alara approached him. You have taken great risk to assist us, she said. Why? Tyler considered the question. Because it's the right thing to do. No child should go hungry or be left without proper care. Human, Saraland, or any other species. Alara tilted her head, studying him with her large silver eyes. Most humans would not involve themselves in alien matters to this degree. Maybe, Tyler shrugged. But I'm not most humans. And you kids aren't just alien matters to me anymore. He smiled at her. Get some rest. I'll see you in the morning. As Tyler walked back to his diner, he reflected on the bizarre turn his life had taken. A month ago, he had been the owner of a failing restaurant, serving occasional customers and wondering how long he could stay afloat. Now he was effectively running an underground operation to feed and house dozens of alien children, hiding from lunar security and, apparently, the Galactic Assembly itself. It was madness, of course. If he were caught, the diplomatic consequences could be severe. But when he thought of those silver eyes looking at him with trust and gratitude, he knew he couldn't have chosen differently. What Tyler couldn't know was that his actions had already come to the attention of someone with the power to change not just his fate, but potentially the relationship between humanity and the galaxy itself. 3 days after the emergency relocation, Tyler was preparing breakfast in the kitchen of the vacant restaurant that now served as the Saraland children's temporary home. He had just finished a batch of fruit-filled pastries that the children particularly enjoyed when the main door opened, and a tense-looking Varix hurried in. Tyler Grant, he said urgently, you must depart immediately. Tyler looked up in surprise, flour dusting his hands. What's wrong? Is security coming? No, Varix replied, his patterns shifting rapidly. High Command is coming. Here. Now. High Command. Tyler asked, confused. What's High Command? Before Varix could explain, the door opened again. 2 tall adult Saralands entered, wearing elaborate metallic uniforms unlike the simple jumpsuits of the children. They moved with military precision, scanning the room with cold silver eyes before taking positions on either side of the door. Tyler felt the blood drain from his face as a third figure entered. She was clearly Saraland, but unlike any Tyler had seen before. Taller than the guards, she wore an intricately designed suit that seemed to capture and reflect light in impossible ways. Her blue skin bore complex iridescent patterns that shifted with hypnotic elegance, and a diadem of what appeared to be crystalline material adorned her head. She carried herself with unmistakable authority, her very presence commanding the room. Most striking, however, was her face, and the immediate, shocking familiarity Tyler felt when he saw it. Though alien in its features, he recognized the same patterns, the same structure he had been looking at for weeks now in a smaller, younger form. This was Alara's mother. The resemblance was unmistakable. The Saraland woman surveyed the room with piercing silver eyes, her gaze falling first on the children, who had all dropped to one knee in what Tyler recognized as a gesture of extreme deference, and then on Tyler himself, still standing frozen by the serving counter with flour on his hands and shock on his face. You are the human called Tyler Grant, she said. Her translation device was far more sophisticated than the pendants the children wore, rendering her voice in perfect, accentless English that somehow conveyed both melody and steel. Tyler swallowed hard. Yes, and you are. I am Supreme Counselor Viziria, sovereign of the Saraland Concordat, and principal negotiator for the Galactic Assembly. Her silver eyes bored into him. And you, human, have been feeding my children. Tyler's mind reeled. Supreme Counselor? Sovereign. The implications crashed over him in waves. Alara and her siblings weren't just the children of some mid-level diplomat. They were the offspring of what sounded very much like the ruler of the entire Saraland civilization. Your children, he managed to say, finding his voice. You mean Alara, Miran, and Tasso? Something flickered across Viziria's alien features. Surprise, perhaps, that this human knew her children by name. Yes, she confirmed. Along with Kren. My progeny. Tyler's shock gave way to a sudden surge of indignation. Your children have been sneaking out daily for weeks to get food from my diner. Food for themselves and dozens of other Saraland children who were living in an abandoned warehouse. If you're their mother, how could you not know this? The guards tensed visibly at his tone, but Viziria raised a hand slightly, stopping whatever intervention they might have considered. I am aware now, she stated coolly. What I wish to understand is why a human food preparer would involve himself so extensively in Saraland matters. Tyler gestured to the children around the room. Because they were hungry. Because they needed help. Does there need to be another reason? Viziria studied him with an intensity that made Tyler feel as though she could see through him entirely. After a long moment, she turned to one of the guards. Secure the perimeter. Ensure our privacy. The guards nodded and exited, leaving Tyler alone with the apparent ruler of the Saraland civilization and several dozen nervous-looking children. Viziria moved further into the room, her elaborate garments making no sound as she walked. She approached the serving counter where Tyler had been preparing breakfast, examining the food with evident curiosity. My children have spoken extensively of your cuisine, she said, lifting one of the fruit pastries and studying it. They claim it possesses exceptional qualities. Tyler, still trying to process exactly who he was speaking with, shrugged. It's just simple food, made with care. Nothing fancy. And yet, it compelled my progeny to risk severe consequences by venturing outside authorized areas repeatedly. It motivated them to establish an unauthorized support network for lower-tier dependents. It inspired them to conceal their activities from high command. She fixed him with that penetrating silver gaze again. These are not typical behaviors for Saraland youth, especially those of the sovereign line. Tyler felt a flicker of pride on behalf of Alara and her siblings. Maybe they just have good hearts. They saw others in need and wanted to help. Such attitudes are not cultivated in Saraland society, Viziria stated. Hierarchy and order are foundational principles. Each serves according to their designated tier, even if it means children go hungry. Tyler challenged, his indignation overcoming his caution. Viziria tilted her head, regarding him curiously. The lower-tier dependents receive nutritional sustenance appropriate to their station. Survival requirements are met. There's a big difference between not starving and being properly fed, Tyler countered. These kids were living in a warehouse, eating the bare minimum to survive, while the negotiations dragged on for months. And your own children. Did you even notice they were disappearing for hours every day? A ripple moved across Viziria's iridescent patterns, and Tyler got the distinct impression he had touched a nerve. The negotiations with your world are of critical galactic importance, she said, a defensive note entering her perfect translation. My attention has been required elsewhere. More important than your own kids? Tyler asked incredulously. The room fell utterly silent. Even the children seemed to be holding their breath. Challenging a galactic ruler about her parenting priorities was probably not the wisest diplomatic move, but Tyler was too invested in these children's welfare to back down now. Viziria stared at him for a long moment. Then, to Tyler's surprise, she did something unexpected. She picked up one of the pastries and took a bite. Her silver eyes widened fractionally as she tasted it. She chewed slowly, thoughtfully, before swallowing. This is unexpected, she said finally. It's just a fruit pastry, Tyler said, though he couldn't help feeling a chef's satisfaction at her reaction. No, Viziria corrected. It is more than that. She turned to where Alara stood with her siblings. Approach. Alara came forward and knelt before her mother. Explain again why you believed it necessary to bring this human's food to the lower-tier dependents, Viziria commanded. Alara kept her gaze downward as she spoke. The standard nutrition provided lacked essential trace elements needed for optimal development. Health scans showed deterioration in cognitive and physical metrics among the youngest dependents. Tyler Grant's food contains these elements in natural forms that are more readily absorbed than synthetic supplements. And you discovered this how? Tasso was experiencing concentration difficulties, Alara explained. After consuming Tyler Grant's food for 3 consecutive days, his cognitive performance improved by 17%. We extrapolated potential benefits for the others and initiated the distribution program. Viziria turned back to Tyler. Is this why you assisted them? For the health benefits your food provides? Tyler shook his head. I didn't know about any of that. I helped because they were kids who needed good food and a safe place. That's all. Viziria studied him with that penetrating gaze again, then did something that shocked everyone in the room. She lowered herself gracefully to sit at one of the tables, a gesture that seemed to discard formality. Tyler Grant, she said, her tone subtly different. I believe we need to have a more extensive conversation. Over the next hour, in that commandeered vacant restaurant, Tyler Grant found himself engaged in what might have been the strangest diplomatic exchange in human history, discussing nutrition, child welfare, and cultural differences with the ruler of an advanced alien civilization, all while serving breakfast to dozens of wide-eyed Saraland children. Viziria, once she set aside her initial aloofness, proved to be an attentive listener. Tyler explained his background as a chef, his failed career on Earth, his struggling diner on the moon, and how meeting Alara and her siblings had given him new purpose. He spoke passionately about the warehouse conditions he had discovered and his conviction that all children, regardless of species or social tier, deserved proper care and nutrition. In human society, Tyler concluded, children come first. Not negotiations, not politics, not social hierarchies. Kids. Viziria considered this. Your species places unusual emphasis on offspring development. Is that so unusual? Tyler asked. They're the future, aren't they? Isn't that true for Saralands too? Our approach is different, Viziria admitted. Saraland children are viewed as extensions of the social tier they will eventually occupy. Resources are allocated accordingly. But they're still growing, Tyler argued. All of them need proper nutrition, care, attention, regardless of what tier they'll end up in as adults. Viziria was silent for a moment, then looked over to where Alara sat with her siblings, watching the exchange with evident fascination. When did you last directly interact with your progeny before today? Tyler asked quietly. The question seemed to catch Viziria off guard. 37 lunar cycles, she admitted after a moment. The negotiations have required complete focus. 37 days, Tyler translated, shaking his head. No wonder they started wandering off. They were looking for someone to notice them. A flash of something, possibly defensive anger, crossed Viziria's features. You presume much, human. I'm just telling you what I see, Tyler said simply. You have amazing kids. Alara organized this whole operation to help others. They showed empathy, resourcefulness, courage. When was the last time you told them you were proud of them? Instead of answering, Viziria rose and walked over to where her children sat. She studied them with new attention, noting details she had clearly missed before. The way Alara protectively positioned herself slightly in front of her siblings, the eager intelligence in Tasso's eyes, the quiet determination in Miran and Kren's postures. You created this system of food distribution without authorization, she stated, though her tone lacked the coldness from earlier. Yes, mother, Alara confirmed, her gaze still lowered. You risked disciplinary consequences to assist lower-tier dependents. Yes, mother. Why? Alara hesitated, then raised her eyes to meet her mother's. A breach of protocol that caused a murmur among the other children. Because it was necessary, she said simply, unconsciously echoing Tyler's own words. They needed help. Viziria was silent for a long moment. Then, to the astonishment of everyone present, she placed her hand gently on Alara's head, a gesture of approval and affection that made Alara's iridescent patterns brighten visibly. Perhaps, Viziria said quietly, there are elements of human social structure worth further examination. She returned to where Tyler stood, her demeanor subtly changed. Tyler Grant, I require your assistance in a matter of some delicacy. Tyler raised his eyebrows, wondering what could possibly come next in this already surreal situation. What kind of assistance? The Galactic Assembly negotiations have reached a critical stage, Viziria explained. Humanity's position within galactic society is being determined. There are factions with differing views on your species' readiness for full integration. What does that have to do with me? Tyler asked. I'm just a cook. Precisely, Viziria said, with what might have been the Saralan equivalent of a smile. You are a cook who has demonstrated a fundamental aspect of human nature that many in the Assembly have questioned, your capacity for altruistic action across species boundaries. Tyler frowned, trying to follow her meaning. You're saying that because I fed some hungry kids, that somehow proves something about humanity? You did not merely feed some hungry kids, Viziria corrected. You risked security violations and potential diplomatic incidents to ensure the welfare of Saralan children. Not just any Saralan children, but primarily lower-tier dependents with whom you had no connection. You then extended this care to my own progeny, despite having no knowledge of their status. She paused, her iridescent patterns shifting into what Tyler had come to recognize as a thoughtful configuration. The prevailing concern among certain Assembly factions is that humans, as a relatively young spacefaring species, possess insufficient capacity for genuine cross-species empathy. Your actions provide compelling evidence to counter this perception. Tyler was startled by the implications. Wait, are you saying my little lunch program for these kids might affect how the entire galaxy views humanity? It already has, Viziria stated matter-of-factly. I have transmitted observational data regarding your activities to the Assembly Leadership Council. Your behavior has become a significant discussion point in ongoing negotiations. Tyler ran a hand through his hair, feeling distinctly out of his depth. All I did was make lunch for hungry kids. Anyone would have done the same. That, Viziria said with unexpected intensity, is precisely the point. What you consider ordinary behavior represents an extraordinary perspective to many galactic civilizations. Most species confine their altruistic impulses to genetic or social in-groups. She gestured to the children gathered around the room. You saw no distinction between these children and human children in terms of their fundamental needs and rights to care. This perspective is valuable. Tyler wasn't sure how to respond to this. The idea that his simple act of feeding hungry children could have galactic implications seemed absurd. Yet the ruler of an advanced alien civilization was standing in front of him, apparently suggesting exactly that. So what happens now? He asked finally. I would like you to address the Galactic Assembly, Viziria stated, as casually as if she were asking him to prepare another batch of pastries. To explain your actions and perspectives regarding the children. To demonstrate the capacity for cross-species empathy that exists within humanity. Tyler stared at her in disbelief. You want me to speak to the Galactic Assembly? Me? I'm a diner cook, not a diplomat. That, Viziria said with what Tyler could have sworn was the Saralan equivalent of a smile, is precisely why it must be you. 2 days later, Tyler Grant found himself standing before the Galactic Assembly on the far side of the moon, wearing his best clothes, hastily purchased for the occasion, and trying not to visibly tremble as representatives of dozens of advanced alien civilizations regarded him with varying degrees of curiosity, skepticism, and in some cases, what appeared to be distaste. The assembly chamber was a marvel of alien architecture, a vast circular space with soaring crystalline structures that seemed to defy gravity. Tiered seating encircled a central speaking platform where Tyler now stood, feeling painfully ordinary and human amidst the exotic diversity of galactic representatives. Viziria had spent the previous day preparing him, explaining the protocol, and coaching him on how to address the assembly. She had been surprisingly patient, her initial coldness replaced by what Tyler interpreted as genuine respect. Her children, including Alara, who had been officially recognized as Tyler's formal liaison, had watched these preparations with evident pride and excitement. Now, as Tyler faced the assembled representatives of civilizations he could barely comprehend, he focused on the simple truth that had guided his actions from the beginning. Distinguished representatives, he began, his voice steadier than he felt. I stand before you not as an official diplomat or representative of Earth, but as an ordinary human who runs a small diner on the moon. I'm here because I made lunch for some hungry kids. A murmur rippled through the assembly at this direct, unpolished opening. Tyler continued, gaining confidence. About a month ago, 3 Saraland children wandered into my restaurant looking for food. I didn't know who they were or where they came from. I just knew they were hungry, so I fed them. They came back the next day with friends, and I fed them too. Eventually, I discovered they were bringing food back to dozens of other children who were living in inadequate conditions during these extended negotiations. Tyler glanced at Viziria, who stood on a raised platform to his right, her elaborate regalia identifying her as one of the highest-ranking officials present. She gave him an almost imperceptible nod. I've been told that my actions in feeding these children, finding them better shelter, and caring for their welfare have somehow become relevant to how you view humanity's readiness for fuller participation in galactic society. Honestly, that confuses me. Because where I come from, helping hungry children isn't exceptional. It's just what you do. Tyler looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many alien representatives as he could. I've learned that some species here question humanity's capacity for empathy beyond our own kind. You wonder if we can truly care about beings who don't look like us, who evolved on different worlds under different suns. Well, let me tell you something about humans. We can, and we do. He gestured to the Saraland children who had been permitted to attend, sitting in a special section near Viziria. Alara and her siblings sat at the front, watching him with those silver eyes that had become so familiar to him. I didn't help these kids because of some diplomatic calculation or political strategy. I helped them because they needed help. Because when I look at a Saraland child, or any child, from any world, I don't see an alien. I see a kid who deserves care, good food, and a safe place to grow up. That's not exceptional human behavior. That's just being human. Tyler paused, gathering his thoughts for what he felt was the most important part of his message. I've learned that some galactic societies operate on strict hierarchies, where resources and care are allocated based on social status or genetic lineage. I can't pretend to understand all your cultures or judge your ways. But I can tell you this. Humanity, for all our many flaws, believes at our core that every child has equal worth and deserves equal care. He turned slightly to face Viziria directly now. Even Supreme Counselor Viziria, ruler of the Saraland Concordat, has recognized that perhaps there's wisdom in this perspective. After seeing how her own children work to help others less fortunate, she's begun to question aspects of Saraland's social structure that she previously took for granted. Viziria inclined her head slightly, acknowledging this statement to the visible shock of many assembly representatives. Tyler continued, his voice growing stronger. If that's the kind of empathy and adaptability you're looking for in deciding humanity's place in your galactic community, then you should know it isn't rare among us. It's who we are at our best. Not all of us, not all the time. We're an imperfect species still growing and learning. But this capacity to see beyond differences, to care for others regardless of their origin, that runs deep in human nature. He gestured around the grand chamber. You've built something remarkable here, a community of wildly different species finding ways to cooperate and coexist. Humans want to be part of that, not just for what we can gain, but for what we can contribute. And maybe, just maybe, one of those contributions is reminding even the oldest and most advanced civilizations that compassion doesn't need to be calculated or hierarchically distributed. Sometimes, it's as simple as making lunch for hungry kids, whoever and whatever they may be. Tyler took a deep breath, feeling he had said all he could. Thank you for listening to a diner cook from the moon. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. A profound silence filled the chamber. Then, to Tyler's surprise, Viziria rose from her seat and approached the central platform. This was apparently a significant breach of protocol, judging by the reaction of the assembly. Representatives of the Galactic Assembly, she announced, her voice carrying effortlessly through the vast space. I, Viziria, Supreme Counselor of the Saraland Concordat, wish to formally revise the Saraland position regarding humanity's status within our collective. She gestured to Tyler. This human, through his actions towards Saraland children, including my own progeny, has demonstrated qualities that our initial assessments failed to properly value. Where we saw primitive emotionalism, we should have recognized profound empathic capacity. Where we saw disregard for hierarchical order, we should have recognized moral courage. Viziria turned to face the assembly directly, her iridescent patterns shifting into a configuration that Tyler had never seen before. I propose that humanity be granted full participatory status in the Galactic Assembly, effective immediately. Furthermore, I propose the establishment of a new interspecies initiative focused on child welfare throughout Assembly territories, to be jointly led by human and Saralan representatives. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds as dozens of species reacted to this unexpected proposal. Tyler stood in stunned silence, unable to process the magnitude of what Viziria had just suggested. She turned to him, and for the first time since he had met her, her silver eyes held what he could only interpret as warmth. "Tyler Grant," she said, her voice pitched for him alone despite the chaos in the chamber. "It seems you have accomplished rather more than merely feeding some hungry children." Tyler managed a shaky smile. "I still think that was the important part." "Perhaps," Viziria acknowledged, "that is precisely why your species has so much to offer our galactic community." As the assembly gradually returned to order and formal deliberations on Viziria's proposal began, Tyler found himself surrounded by Alara, Mirren, Tasso, and Kren, the 4 children who had wandered into his failing diner and changed not only his life, but potentially humanity's place in the galaxy. "You did well, Tyler Grant," Alara said, her silver eyes shining with what Tyler now recognized as pride. "Thanks," Tyler replied, still somewhat dazed by the proceedings. "I just told the truth." "Truth served with care," Alara observed, "much like your food." Tyler laughed. "Speaking of food, what do you say we get out of here and go back to the diner? I'm thinking of trying a new dessert recipe today." The children's enthusiastic response was all the diplomatic victory Tyler needed. 6 months later, the blue plate was unrecognizable from the struggling establishment it had once been. Expanded to 3 times its original size, it now served as both a popular restaurant and the headquarters for the newly established Galactic Child Welfare Initiative, the program Viziria had proposed following Tyler's address to the Assembly. The initiative had transformed the lives of thousands of dependent offspring from dozens of species throughout Assembly territory, implementing what had come to be known as the human model of child care. The radical notion that all children deserved equal nutrition, education, and attention regardless of social status or genetic lineage. Tyler still cooked, though now he had a staff of both human and alien chefs who helped develop menus suitable for various species. The blue plate had become a symbol of cross-species cooperation, a place where diplomats and tourists alike came to experience the simple human hospitality that had unexpectedly changed galactic politics. Alara and her siblings were regular visitors, no longer sneaking away, but coming with their mother's full knowledge and approval. Viziria herself occasionally appeared for what she called informal diplomatic meetings, but what Tyler recognized as simply a mother enjoying time with her children and the food they had come to love. On this particular day, as Tyler placed a fresh apple crisp on the counter to cool, he looked out through the new, much larger view screen that offered a panoramic view of both the lunar surface and Earth hanging in the black sky. The Galactic Assembly Complex was visible in the distance, its crystalline spires gleaming in the sunlight. "Considering your accomplishments, that is quite the contemplative expression," came a now familiar voice behind him. Tyler turned to see Viziria, without her usual entourage or formal regalia, standing in the doorway to the kitchen. In the months since his address to the Assembly, he had come to recognize the subtle expressions and pattern shifts that indicated Saralan emotions. Right now, Viziria was displaying what he interpreted as amused affection. "Just thinking about how strange life can be," Tyler replied with a smile. "One minute you're a failing diner owner, the next you're somehow involved in galactic politics. Is that how humans view causality? As random chance?" Viziria asked, approaching to examine the apple crisp with evident interest. She had developed a particular fondness for Earth desserts. "Sometimes," Tyler admitted. "Though in this case, I'd say it was less random chance and more hungry kids." Viziria nodded, her iridescent patterns shifting into what Tyler now recognized as her thoughtful configuration. My offspring maintain that your decision to assist them was natural human behavior. The assembly researchers continue to debate whether such cross-species altruism is typical or exceptional among your kind. Tyler shrugged. Probably somewhere in between. We're not all saints, but most of us would help a hungry kid if we could, human or otherwise. A simple principle with profound implications, Viziria observed. Much like your cooking. Tyler laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. It was intended as such. Viziria glanced toward the dining area, where her 4 children were setting tables alongside human staff members. They have flourished under your influence. Especially Alara. The Assembly Education Directorate has noted her exceptional aptitude for cross-species relations. She was already exceptional, Tyler pointed out. She organized an entire underground food distribution network at what? The equivalent of 12 Earth years old? That kid's going to be a leader someday. Perhaps, Viziria agreed, with what Tyler now recognized as parental pride. Though I suspect she will choose her own path rather than following established Saraland traditions. Another human influence. Is that a bad thing? Tyler asked. Viziria considered this. 6 standard cycles ago, I would have said yes without hesitation. Now, her patterns shifted into a configuration Tyler had come to recognize as the Saraland equivalent of a smile. Now I find myself increasingly appreciative of human unpredictability. She reached into a fold of her garment and withdrew a small crystalline object, which she placed on the counter beside the cooling dessert. What's this? Tyler asked, examining the object, a translucent crystal etched with intricate patterns. Formal notification, Viziria explained. The Assembly has approved the expansion of the Child Welfare Initiative to 17 additional systems. You will be required to travel off-world periodically to established training centers. Tyler's eyes widened. Off-world? You mean beyond the moon? To other star systems? Is this surprising? Viziria asked. You are the principal human representative of the initiative. Your direct involvement is considered essential to its implementation. Tyler stared at the crystal, then back at Viziria. I never imagined I'd travel to other stars. I'm just a cook. You are considerably more than just a cook, Tyler Grant, Viziria stated firmly. Though your modesty is noted as another curious human trait. She glanced again toward the dining area, where Alara was now demonstrating proper table setting to a younger human staff member. My offspring have requested to accompany you on these missions, as initiative participants, not merely as observers. Tyler smiled. I'd like that. They've got a lot to offer. Indeed, Viziria agreed. They have learned much from you about seeing beyond established boundaries and hierarchies. Perhaps there is still more for them to learn and to teach. She turned to leave, then paused. My administrative schedule permits me to join them on the initial mission. For official oversight purposes, of course. Tyler recognized this for what it was, a mother finding a diplomatic excuse to spend time with her children, and perhaps with the human who had changed her perspective on what that relationship could mean. Of course, he replied with a knowing smile. I'll make sure to pack plenty of apple crisp for the journey. Viziria's patterns shifted in what Tyler now recognized as amusement. That would be appreciated. After she departed, Tyler returned to the view screen, gazing at the stars visible beyond Earth's blue curve. 6 months ago, he had been a struggling chef with a failing diner on the moon. Now he was preparing to travel to distant star systems as a representative of humanity, helping implement child welfare programs for species he had yet to encounter. All because he had made lunch for some hungry alien kids who wandered into his restaurant. Tyler laughed softly to himself. If there was a lesson in all this, perhaps it was simply that kindness, even the most ordinary, everyday sort of kindness, could sometimes have extraordinary consequences. Not that the possibility of such consequences should be the reason for the kindness in the first place. You helped hungry kids because they were hungry kids. The rest was just cosmic dessert. He turned back to the kitchen, where the apple crisp had cooled enough to slice. There were hungry children waiting, human and Saraland alike, and Tyler Grant had food to serve. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.